This conference will now be recorded.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the City of Easley Council meeting, March 8th, 2021. It is 7 p.m. and we are going to start as of right now. And I would like to ask Councilman Kent Dykes if he would do our invocation, followed immediately by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes. Let's bow our heads. Lord, give us knowledge that we can gather good information and make good decisions. More importantly, Lord, give us the wisdom to do what is right and do what is best for the citizens of Easley. Thank you for protecting us in our county and our state and our nation from the coronavirus, and we're grateful that the trend is encouraging and that it appears to be subsiding. But thank you very much for that. Also, thank you for the health of our Mayor Womack, recovering, and also let us be with Councilwoman Nancy Brazil during this time after her operation. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
And Ken, if you'd lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, next on the agenda is the approval of minutes as written. Do you want to have any comments on the minutes? If there's no comments, we'll stand as written. Report from council members, Ward 1.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Welcome back, and continued prayers to you for healthy recovery. And as Kent said, also to Miss Nancy, who's recovering from some surgery, our prayers go out to her as well. The Rec Committee met February the 25th, and although it was a short agenda, we did discuss a contractual piece of material for a tournament that the city's holding, as well as receive an update on the budget requests that the rec department will be requesting at our budget retreat. And no action was taken. And here's hoping to live meetings in the future. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you, sir. Ward 2.
Okay. I agree with the live meeting. It's we've gone virtual for so long, and I think we're losing a lot of our communication, and we need that face-to-face communication. I attended a meeting along with Pat Webb, and I'll pass on that because it's her meeting. Was a very, very informative meeting from our planning commission meeting.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Ward 3. Ms. Pat.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really want to pass on my best wishes for your speedy recovery and thinking about Miss Nancy as well. We've learned a lot in the Planning Commission meeting, looking at some of their needs. And we've had good input on the zoning changes that we're going to be looking at, and how we're going to be able to move forward in a larger area on the needs of our planning officials. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Ward 4.
Mr. Mayor, it's good to see you back, and thankful for
Thank you.
You and your family, and hope a speedy recovery. And also Miss Nancy, hope she recovers quickly. And just wanted to thank the citizens of Easley. They have A lot of them went along with this, majority of them with a mask. And it seems we have got the COVID going in a down direction. So all our efforts of wearing masks, washing hands, and keeping social distancing has helped. And so I'm just thankful to them that they did this for us. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ward 5 is Ms. Nancy, and she's not on tonight, so we do wish her a quick recovery. We do know she's home. That's the good part. Ward 6, Mr. Jim.
We're glad to have you back, Mayor Womack. Best wishes to Nancy Brazil. I received my first vaccine against COVID-19. Looking forward to getting the second one in a few weeks. And I encourage everyone else to do that as soon as they're able. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck. Report from the city administrator.
I did want to just give a little update as we were talking about the COVID cases that we did talk about in the work session. Just to go through some of the numbers. This is the daily positive cases showing the 7-day rolling average. This gives you an idea of where our 7-day rolling average is lining up in previous to previous dates. We are back where we were last summer and fall before we saw the massive spike over the holiday season, and it continues to trend that way, so that's positive. The cumulative cases, this is a way of showing how many days it takes to get 1,000 cases of 1,000 new cases. As you can see, back in the summer we were about 45 days. That began to decline as we saw the cases begin to peak over the holiday season, where the first of the year we were around 5 or 6 days to get 1,000 cases in the county. We have seen that begin to come back down, or that time period increase. We went from 11 days back at the first of the year, 17 days through the first part of February. And right now, for the next 1,000 cases, we're on a 27-day pace. And as you can see, that quick spike is beginning to smooth out a little bit as we go across the chart. Just for some information, to date, this is through Friday, we've had about 13% of the population in Pickens County that has tested positive. That's not necessarily the total number that's had it, but that's the total number that is actually tested positive through a COVID test. Our 14-day running average, which is kind of the lifespan of the COVID virus, it shows you the total number of cases that have been active for 14 days. You can see that number is back down to where we were in the summer and fall as well, and that spike has begun to come down. COVID deaths, again, we're seeing the same kind of trend. We peaked right around the holidays, and we've seen that level out and then begin to decline in February and into March. If you look on the bottom, you'll see the the percent positive of tests that are being conducted. You can see that was a lot higher over the holiday season. It was around 18 to 20%. 7-day moving average of percent positive. Over now, the 7-day rolling average is 2.6. And look at the gray, that shows you the number of tests that are being performed. So you can see that the number of tests being performed are similar to what they were back in December and the first part of January, but our positive cases are down significantly from that time period. And lastly, now that we've begun vaccinations, I did want to give a little update on where the county is in the vaccination rollout. Through Friday, there's been about a little over 19,600 people who have begun their vaccinations in the county. That means they've received at least one shot. If you look at the population overall, that's about 15%, 15.5% of the total county that's been vaccinated. If you look at the population that's over 15, since all of the vaccines are not approved currently for young children, that puts us at about close to 19% being vaccinated, and that puts us in line for 15th out of the 46 counties in the state. Outside of the positive results we're seeing with the positive COVID trends that we're seeing right now, I did want to just remind you of a couple dates that are upcoming. The first being budget retreat with council on Friday as we kick off the budget process. And the second being that we will be closed on April 2nd in observance of Good Friday. We'll be sending out notification on how that will affect trash service as we get closer. That's all I had, unless council has anything specific for me.
Yes, sir, Brian.
Stephen, nothing specific to you, but as just education, I guess, transparency to those viewing from home. If you have our agenda in front of you, you will notice that there is no action or agenda item concerning the mask. But as in our work session, for those that could not attend, I did want to mention that council, their wishes are to not take any action on our mask mandate at this time. So it will proceed as written for the next month, and we will come back and discuss this again next month. Council, please, if I miss something, jump in. But I will also say that we did discuss increasing the capacity for special events. We wanted to give the police department that information because they're getting more and more requests for special events at the amphitheater, things downtown such as runs, bike rides, that type thing. So I did want to mention that for those that are viewing from home.
Oh, you have to buy.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mine or yours?
Okay. Next on the agenda is item 7, citizens to address city council. For those that are planning on addressing city council, Ms. Chapman will call on you, and she times each person. And so as your time comes to an end, you will need to wrap up. I'll let you know, and you'll need to wrap up. You have just a few seconds after that. So, and if you're going to be repetitious, if you see someone else that's doing comments about the same thing you're fixing to talk about, be courteous and try to shorten your comments as much as you can. Everything on the agenda that we think that you're here for, we're planning on going back to an open meeting next month, and that way you'll be able to come to the council meeting. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor. First to speak is Wesley White, and he will be speaking on the Crestview and Sheffield project.
Thank you, Ms. Chapman. The council, I'm Wesley White. I'm with Bridgewater Engineering and Surveying down in Anderson, and we are the engineers of record for the Crestview Towns project. And just letting you know that I'll be available for any questions. Did want to just thank Planning Commission. We had a great in-person meeting. I thought it went well, and I thought they asked some good questions and brought up some good stuff, and did recommend it for approval, and we appreciate their work going forward. But I will be available once we get to that particular portion if anybody has any comments.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you. Next is Mark Wise. He also wants to speak on the Crestview Sheffield project.
Yes, Council and Mayor, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I do want to speak for this rezoning. Townhomes that they're going to put here are in serious need in the community. They have a minimal impact on the surrounding area and are much more desirable than other potential commercial developments that can currently go there under what they are currently zoned, such as a gas station, convenience store, retail strip center, fast food restaurant. Just to offer 2 examples on this parcel, which is 5.8 acres, The QT on 123 is a 2-acre parcel. The cookout on 123 sits on less than an acre. Both of these developments are possible on this parcel without any zoning change at all under the current zoning designation. I've worked with QT and Spinks both in my real estate business and know for a fact that they prefer a corner lot with 2 means of ingress and egress, which means if one of those were to locate on this lot, they would want access to both Crestview and Sheffield. The change that is being proposed is from a less restrictive use to a more restrictive use. The request from this neighborhood commercial to a flexible review district requires site approval from the Planning Commission. 40 units of townhomes based on SCDOT numbers would produce about a 5 to 7% increase in traffic, while typical commercial uses increase traffic by 15% or more. They're not apartment or rental units. They're homes, single-family homes, and based on the current housing market, will likely sell in the mid to high 200s. Depending on what report you read, locally we are 7 to 9 years behind on housing units based on population and current buyer demand. Quality housing is desperately needed, more so than convenience stores or fast food restaurants. So it's my opinion that this should be approved, the zoning change, so that we can have more desperately needed homes and less commercial development. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Chapman.
The next one is Monique Wilson, and she also wants to speak on this project. Monique Wilson. Okay. We'll go on to the next. She must not be on. The next is Gloria Dunlap. Gloria, I know you're on.
Yep, this is Gloria Dunlap. I am located at 1426 Crestview. The entire length of our property butts up to this 5.7 acres that we're discussing about. I understand Mr. White's and Mr. Weiss's comments, but I have not seen any data that backs up any of these numbers. That's a major concern for us residents. We do have a gas station right now, and we do have a doctor's office, and we're not seeing the output. We're not seeing a 15% increase. And of course, again, you know, we're trying to find the numbers that we can base this off of, but there's no traffic impact reports. There's actually no documentation to back up these statements. I do agree that we do need some more upscale houses, but we need homes. We don't need mass living communities dropped in the center of a residential area. The lot that you're talking about is a residential in a residential subdivision. That lot was zoned originally agricultural, then you moved it to neighborhood commercial, and now you want to move it to mass high density living. From a personal perspective, obviously we've made some serious improvements. We have over $130,000 invested into our home. We're going to lose what I can understand right now. We're going to lose approximately 20%. And I was trying to get an appraisal done of what our property is worth now versus what it's going to be worth when these units are built. But unfortunately, the appraisers are very busy. So I couldn't get that information. But a quick look told me that they told me that to expect about a 20% drop. 20% is a lot of money for somebody that's invested. Like I said, we've invested over $130,000 easily into our home here in East. So we have the loss of equity. We have the loss of privacy. I've been told several times, well, at least these units are pretty. Well, it doesn't matter how pretty they are when you're looking at the back end. All we're going to see is the back end of these units. They're going to be 15 feet off our property, 2 stories tall, looking down onto our pool area where our children and grandchildren are swimming and playing. And we've lost our privacy. Now, granted, when we bought this home, we did buy it knowing, well, actually we bought it when it was agricultural. When it was rezoned, We did talk to an attorney, and he did explain to us what can be built there, and we made a judgment call to stay. Kind of did a worst case scenario, like I explained to Kent earlier today. If there is a gas station, which was our worst case scenario, we decided we can live with that. And the reason is this. For one, the gas station is only going to be one level. Okay, you have more traffic coming in to a vacant lot, but you're not going to have as many as if you had, let's say, 40 cars, 98 cars coming and going. So again, and I would like to say very clearly that we would very much rather have a business there rather than 49 two-story units. Any type of service is fine with us. We feel that to come in and drop 49 homes in our backyard and with our equity, loss of equity, is an undue hardship for us. We also have the loss of safety. So I don't know how familiar you guys are with this, but we right now cannot make a left out of our driveway during the morning and the afternoon. We have to make a right out of our driveway, make a left onto Stonehaven, go through the Yorkwood subdivision, and then come back on Sheffield. Make a left out of our driveway. So if you're going to put an entrance, and by the way, Kent, I apologize to you. You were correct. It was one entrance, not two. But if we're going to put one entrance on there, how are these going to get in and out? A traffic light, a roundabout, neither one of those is going to address the very fundamental issue of volume. Neither one of those is going to work. Their letter of intent states that there will be a, quote, impact will be a significant reduction from possible commercial development allowed under the current zoning. They estimate on their letter a 7% increase in traffic. Again, there's no documentation, there's no studies, there's nothing to back up these numbers. I would like to see impact studies. I would like to see the water runoff situation, because this 5.1 acres is a bowl. And it's shaped like a bowl. And if I could share a screen, I would have showed you the water that when we get a really heavy rain, the amount that comes in. When it first started happening, we had a civil engineer come out and it ran at 3,000 gallons a minute. We have that documentation. That's how much water there is. Then we have on the top of the hill, the top of that bowl is an underground water system. So now, to what degree it would impact them, I don't know. But we do know it's there because we have to deal with it constantly. But we are concerned about water runoff. What is the benefit to the community? There's no benefit by reducing our property values, increasing our traffic, increasing noise. There's no benefit to the community. Also, there's nothing telling us what you're going to use to make your decision. What is the basis, the criteria?
Okay, Gloria, your time's up.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Gloria.
Okay, the next, also, Mayor, let me say that I did receive a lot of emails and some letters on this property. Everything that I received was against this project. I'm going to read off the names of the people that I have received comments from. Jeff Cooper, Ron Farrell, Randy Snelvey, Pam Hillegeist, David Coster, William Page, Angie Albertson, Sharon and Barry Moon, Sammy Grant. All those sent in information. I also had 2 comments on the Walnut Hill property that's on second reading tonight from Stacy Israel and Lisa Custer. Those comments have been addressed by Mr. Steese and they have been resolved. Now we'll move on to the Burdine Springs ordinance. The first person on here to speak is Edgar Lease, and he is him and Michelle Huffman. They are supposed to be together tonight. Speak. Hello, are you on? I'm not showing where he's on.
I see a Michelle that's unmuted. I was assuming that was her.
Michelle Huffman.
It just says Michelle, but they unmuted.
I don't know. Okay, well, they had sent in a letter and that was forwarded to all of council, so you know their position and their comments, because that was forwarded to you earlier. The other is Randy and Joy Hathcock.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to share. We just bought into the Burdine Springs subdivision about 6 months ago. We loved it because it was a peaceful, quiet neighborhood with spacious lots. And we were very disturbed to hear that there may be an assisted living, memory care unit, something institutional or office setting to come in. That would actually, we would be the second house from that new facility, whatever it would be. It would change the character of our development, of our subdivision. It would lower our house values for sure. It would increase traffic going down Burdine Drive, and we already have people using it as a shortcut between Dacusville Highway and Robert P. Jeans. We do have kids using the streets. We have adults walking constantly, kids riding bikes. When we bought, it was in August, so we didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to the fact that the Willows was just right across the branch from our backyard. But then, of course, when winter came and all the leaves disappeared, we found out that we had the Willows in our backyard, and we have dealt with that, but really don't want another big institution just on the side of us with the Willows behind us. It doesn't fit into our neighborhood at all. It would change the character, and we just ask you to represent us by saying this is a good idea, but a bad place for it. Thank you.
Thank you. The only other comment I received on the Burdine Springs was from Julie Howell. She's the agent for the developer on that project, and I forwarded that email to all of council. So that is all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you so much. We'll go to item 8, and that is unfinished business of second readings. Ordinance A is ordinance number 2021-01, annex of property. It's the property on Rock Springs Road, and I'll turn it over to Stephen to give us an explanation.
Thank you, Mayor. So this one was discussed last month. As you can see, the parcels in blue are currently requested to be annexed into the city. They are asked to be zoned as GR2 as their zoning classification when they annexed. Total about 2.5 acres between the two parcels. The request for GR2 would allow a max of 14 units per acre. The goal for the requester is it's actually Shadowbrook Apartments that is requested the annexation. Their goal from talking with staff is that they want to build, I think, 2 additional buildings to expand out that way. Andrea Lane already is a connection into Rock Springs Road and touches both of these properties, would require no additional road cuts into Rock Springs Road. The Planning Commission did approve unanimously in January Council had first reading and approved in February. Should council approve second reading tonight, it would be final, and it would be annexed in and zoned as GR2. Mr. Holcomb, Mr. O'Shields, and myself can answer any questions that council may have on any of these properties.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept this ordinance as written.
Okay.
I second.
Have any more questions? All in favor of this, raise your right hand. Thank you.
We didn't have a
B.
call for the question, did we? I didn't have a call for the question, or did somebody call for the question? I didn't hear.
I didn't hear one.
I thought Kent did.
Kent made the motion to approve with a second from Pat.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I'll call the question.
Thank you, Brian.
Call for the question. All in favor for this, raise your right hand. With the exception of Nancy, everybody's affirmative. Thank you. B, ordinance number 2021-01. This is to give a right-of-way property next to Walnut Hill Drive. Need a motion?
Mayor, I make a motion to bring this item to the floor for discussion.
Second.
Okay. Stephen?
Again, this is second reading. This was discussed and voted on last month. The two right-of-ways that you see highlighted in white, they run in between properties. There is currently no plan for any roads. They're just old road right-of-ways from where this property was subdivided. Companion has asked for both right-of-ways. They own the land south and north of Walnut Hill, and they have some plans to add some additional housing back there, and have asked for the right-of-ways. We have reached out. There's another property that's listed as property under development in the northwest corner, and they do not need access to Walnut Hill via this right-of-way, so they have no need of the right-of-way. If council approves, the right-of-way would be transferred, and the city attorney has drafted up the documents, and if council approves, we will record those and we will quitclaim these deeds over to Companion. Council did approve first reading in February. This would be second and final reading if council approves tonight.
Any questions? Yes, sir. Terry?
On that right of way, is there any sewer, water, power, anything that is using that property now as it stands?
There's not. I reached out to Easily Combined Utilities. They have no utilities in those right of ways and would need us to keep no easements for them. All of their utilities are actually going directly to the properties and being installed by all the developers.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, Pat.
I would call for the question.
Call for the question. All in favor of this, raise your right hand.
You didn't get a second on that, but I'll do that.
Oh, sorry about that. You done the second. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, number 9, new business. This is first readings of ordinances. A is ordinance number 2021-00, which is additions to chapter 152-30. And I will turn it over to Stephen and Tommy Holcomb, I believe.
Yes, sir. I'll give a little overview.
Motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, motion.
So moved.
Pat.
So moved.
Second.
I'll hit the high marks, and then if there's any specific questions, like I said, Mr. Holcomb will fill in and answer those questions. So the current floodplain ordinance for the city was adopted in 2007. This ordinance the purpose of it is to protect human life, minimizing property damage, and encouraging appropriate construction practices. This has to do with flood conditions where we don't build within floodplains and above so many feet above the edge of them. The purpose of this addition is to update the ordinance to match current guidelines of compliance. We've heard from the state, and they want us to change just a couple sections to bring it into compliance, so that should there be any issue in the future, if we have any floods or issues that arise, they will respond, and we will be able to get FEMA and FEMA assistance and reimbursement for those kind of issues that arise. As you can see, it's to add number 12 to chapter 15230, and you can see what it's to say. And then the second one is to correct the date of the FEMA flood insurance study to the latest one, which is December 21st, 2017. If you have any additional questions, like I said, Mr. Holcomb is here, as well as Mr. Shields, and they can try to address your concerns.
Okay, do we have any questions? Yes, sir, Brian.
Mr. Holcomb, Mr. O'Shields, are we adding any property to the floodplain ordinance or plan, or taking any away? I doubt that's going to happen, but just a question.
No, sir, we are not adding any. That would not be up to us or through this ordinance. That would be done by the FEMA maps. And that was last done in 2017. So all this is just a correction on some words.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other questions?
Call for the question.
Call for the question. All in favor of this, raise your right hand.
Didn't get a second.
I'm sorry. I've been out too long.
No, we had a second to bring the motion to the floor. No need for a second when the question's been called.
There you go. Okay. Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. Ordinance number 2021-04 to rezone approximately 5.897 acres on Crestview and Sheffield Road. I have a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to bring this to the floor for discussion.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Pat.
I would second
You
that.
second? You second? Okay, thank you. Stephen?
Yes, sir. So this is tax map number 5038-14446156. Total is about 5.9 acres. It's highlighted in blue in the screen below. You can see it's at the corner of Sheffield and Crestview, bordered by single family residential to the south, west, and east. To the north, it has a section of townhomes that border it, as well as office as neighborhood commercial. As we talked about during the work session, this is what would be considered a kind of a transitional piece of property, in that it sits in between multiple different kinds of zoning, where you have neighborhood commercial, GR1, and single family residential all coming together in kind of a single point. It has been requested to be rezoned from neighborhood commercial to a flexible review district. As we discussed, a flexible review district has several requirements that go along with it. They do have to submit a proposed design, as well as several different items to council. Should they, the flexible review district is unique in that there is only zoning district that requires that to be done up front. With any other zoning, it is simply changing the zoning to a classification that allows for multiple development types to occur within that classification. As we talked about with neighborhood commercial, that could range anything from a doctor's office to a insurance agency to a bed and breakfast to a gas station, any of those kind of things. Where with the flexible review district, they have to specifically tell council what they're wanting to construct and how it will be done. Should that change, they have to come back through the zoning to go through the planning commission and come back to council to change that. We actually have our first one that's coming back to be changed in the next month from one type of, from townhomes to single family, but it still will be a flexible review district. The requester has expressed interest in constructing townhomes. The planning commission heard in February and approved with unanimous vote. This would be first reading for council. Second reading would be in April should council approve. I will say that the developer, I think, is here. I think they were there during public comment. So if you have any questions for them, I did put a couple slides of what they're proposing, just so if you want to reference it, I can do so. And again, Mr. Holcomb and Mr. O'Shields, we can answer questions that we can try to answer questions that council may have. Thank you. Sorry, hang on.
Yes, sir, Kent.
Well, this is in my ward, and I've been following this very, very closely. There's been a lot of controversy to this, mostly on the Nextdoor app, the Nextdoor website. Negative controversy to this. Traffic is an issue on the Sheffield and the Crestview. That main intersection does get backed up, and I travel that intersection daily, and it does get backed up in the morning and in the afternoon, and it's a tricky four-way stop. You got to be very careful there. And I want to also highlight, you can look at it, but there's five large residential lots bordering this, and I'm glad our developers are on listening to us also. But I walked a little bit of that property today, and I'm a little concerned about the setback, a little concerned about the buffer between those two-story townhomes and the surrounding residential lots. I think we will make sure that's well protected and well buffered along those lots right there. It empties out into Crestview Road, does cause congestion, will cause congestion, and Councilwoman Pat, you may want to jump in and talk to us about, you've got a good suggestion about better communications on this, and quite honestly, we're lacking in the communications to everybody about this development. And
Yes, ma'am, Pat.
If I might, the public hearing was held and we didn't have anybody attending the public hearing. I think that's a lot of the result of fear of COVID. But nobody was there. I would like to see if the developer would be willing to indulge us with another more public meeting where we could explain things a little bit better to the general public. One of the things with the variable review district is that it is more flexible. It is something that we could negotiate a little bit more with. I'm hearing requests or confusion, hope for a better buffer area, and that's a good thing. I'd like to let the general public and all of the neighbors in that area know what is planned and what could be planned. So I would hope that we could move forward with first reading, and then during that time period, we could have either the city hosts an additional meeting, or the developer could host an additional meeting at which people could come and view what's there and hear what's going on and planned. I also had a moment today to go up and look at the site plans that were submitted, And one of the issues, of course, that we've heard is stormwater. And I was pleased to see that the stormwater the site is to be regraded, if this is approved, to go into a detention pond that is at closer to the intersection itself. So nothing would be flowing off the site. And this is beautiful. Thank you very much for putting it up. But you can see the detention pond there at the
There's a lot to
intersection.
it.
Yes, and I think that would help some of the neighbors to understand that they're being protected with the plans that were submitted. But those, I think a better communications and a little bit more time to talk with the neighbors might help us.
All right, anyone else? Yes, sir, Brian.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thanks, and thanks to Pat and Kent. First of all, I'll say at our work session, Jim Robinson made a very good point, and Pat alluded to that, which is more communication. And I think this is definitely an issue that needs to be discussed more with the public. And I agree with Pat that some type of public meeting would be beneficial, but also, as Jim pointed out in the work session, it's important for the public and our citizens to be able to address us in person. And so, again, hopefully next month we'll have an in-person city council meeting where people can do that. Secondly, I did want to make a point based on the emails that we did receive, mostly in opposition to this. There were several titled annexation, and then there were several titled rezoning. So I would like to clarify that this is not an annexation request. That piece of property is already annexed into the city of Easley. And this is a rezoning request. So I think that's important for just general education for our citizens. We know that traffic is an issue, and we know as we grow, continue to grow, and we're growing rapidly, this is a good place to live, and people want to come here, and our tax rate is low, and traffic is going to continue to be a problem. And unfortunately, in a lot of instances where there are state roads, our hands are tied. And so when I finish, I would like to turn it back over to Stephen just to address some of those traffic concerns that we've known for a long time, and what we're trying to do to alleviate or at least improve that intersection and reaching out to SCDOT and so forth. And then lastly, I will say that the Planning Commission usually, I've been on council for a long time, and I usually defer to the Planning Commission unless there is some blatant reason to not approve that rears its ugly head. I have not seen anything on this rezoning request to this point. So, and I believe this is an appropriate use of this property. So therefore, I'm going to support this ordinance on first reading with the intent and the hopes that there is a community meeting where we can gather more information and the developer can present that to our citizens, and then make a final decision prior to second reading. So I'm sorry to go on so long, but I felt those things were important. Stephen, could you just address briefly the traffic issues that we know that are there?
Yes, sir. So one of the things that we began last year, actually, have been longer than that, about researching doing a development impact fee. And in doing so, we identified about 8 or 9 intersections and about 4 corridors throughout the city that either is currently being impacted or will continue to be impacted by growth and traffic. We have got a study for those intersections and the corridors to be studied. Part of that we were looking to fund with a development impact fee, but at the same time we've also applied through GPATS, which is the local planning for planning and traffic agency that is a branch of, I guess, SCDOT. They receive funding from SCDOT to work within the Greenville, Pickens, and part of Anderson transportation networks. We actually submitted an application today to see if they will fund having these studies completed. And in doing so, it will end up on their list of projects to continue to track and look to improve, fund to improve. Whether they approve the study or not, they will begin tracking all of these intersections and corridors for future improvements. So that was completed and turned into them today. The deadline for that is, I think, next week, March 19th. And then they will begin reviewing those in April and bring a recommendation to the committee in May for which ones to fund. So we'll have to hear something over the next 3 months on whether those studies will be funded and which ones we can prioritize.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. I appreciate that. That's good information. Lastly, let me just state before Mr. Robinson, I'll yield the floor to him, is for our citizens that are out there listening and joining us tonight, that this property is already rezoned neighborhood commercial. Something is going there on that piece of property, whether it's condos or a gas station or what have you. So it's important to know that it will be developed at some point, and we just have to, hope and decide what's best for Easley and that neighborhood and what fits in appropriately. But I did want to make that point before I yielded the floor to Mr. Robinson.
Thank you. Great comments. Jim?
Am I on?
Yes, sir. You're it.
Okay. Mayor Womack, I will vote in favor of this ordinance on first reading so we can get to second reading. And I think it is extremely important that City Council have a meeting that the public can attend in person and address council face to face about this and other matters that will be coming up. We've got several annexations and rezonings in the near future that seem to be controversial. And I think it is critically important to give our citizens the opportunity to speak their mind on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, can I say something?
Yes, sir. Mr. Hawker.
I have Mr. White on email here, and I think Ms. Webb addressed some comments to him, and he is available if you would like for him, Ms. Webb, to answer, or if you want to just wait and see if we can set up a meeting.
Well, I think the stormwater is going to be a very important thing, and I don't believe that even in the Planning Commission meeting, it was as obvious that all of the stormwater will be going away from the existing homes, and I would like to reinforce that very much.
Yeah. And I think the neighbors in that area will be appreciative of that too.
Okay.
And I thank Mr. White for his receptiveness, and let's go ahead and move forward and organize that meeting for the residents around there and for us to attend to get better communications and get some document. Gloria referred to some documentations about some of the traffic, the backup documentation. So that would be a good time to bring it out.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, if there were something coming in from a traffic engineer that could be demonstrated to these folks, I know the 10 trips per day per household for a single-family residential detached structure, but I know that the numbers are different for townhomes, so those numbers can be brought up from a traffic engineer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay,
Mr. Mayor, I call the question.
call for a question. All in favor of this ordinance, raise your right hand. No one opposed. Thank you. Item C, ordinance number 2021-05 to rezone approximately 15.01 acres north side of Burdine Drive. Do I have a motion?
Motion to bring to the floor for discussion.
Second. Who's second?
I will.
Okay. All right. Stephen?
Thank you, Mayor. So as you can see, the parcel in blue is the one that we're talking about. It is a little over 15 acres. It is currently zoned R7.5. R7.5 means that it has to have a minimum of 7,500 square foot lots with detached single family. They've requested zoning to office and institutional. They have expressed interest in constructing an assisted living facility on the property. This property, again, it kind of, as we talked about with the last one, kind of serves as that pinch property, kind of a buffer where you have single family residential to the east. To the west, you have institutional with an elementary school across Robert P. Jeans. To the south, you have the Willows, which is a senior living, and you have Waterford Apartments, which is a multifamily. So again, you have various types of properties that are touching this property, with this kind of stuff serving as a buffer between the different types. But ultimately, as Councilman Garrison said, whichever way it ends up developing, it's going to end up matching or mismatching part of what's around it, as he stated with the last one. Planning Commission did hear this in February. They took no action. They were able to get no motion to approve, and nobody made a motion to disapprove. However, when Planning Commission takes no action on an item, it comes with negative connotation to council because it means they did not approve. This would be first reading for council. Second reading, should council approve, would be at the April council meeting. And again, Mr. Holcomb and Mr. O'Shields and I are here to try to answer any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Do we have any comments? Terry?
As I stated in the workshop, I'm opposed to this. I went to the meeting of the zoning commission and they listened to very good arguments on both sides. One developer and several neighbors showed up to speak at the meeting, and they did not make a decision. So that's a way of saying no to us. And we normally listen to the planning commission because they're trained and have knowledge in this. Looking at the properties and talking to the neighbors, they already have the Willows right there in the back door complaining of lights, noise, sirens from ambulances coming in there, garbage trucks dumping at 4:30 in the morning from that noise. And this piece of land here, we need this kind of business. Don't get me wrong, we need this, but this is not the proper place for it. It should be somewhere like on the corridor 153, in my opinion, where they'd have access to all these shopping communities they talk about taking their residents to. They said they're going to be running vans in and out of there all day long. Don't matter how many it takes, is what the developer said, to get these people where they want to go. So that's going to impact traffic. And actually coming out of that from Westville, it's more likely going to be on that little strip of Burdine Springs Road, cutting through from Robert P. Jeans to 135 or Dacusville Highway. There's 2 stop signs in that. People already try to cut through there and have a tendency to run those stop signs. Well, people walking in the neighborhood, kids riding on bicycles. When these people developed this nice subdivision, it was sided with them with residential property. They thought it would stay that way. And this is not like the property down there on Crestview Road. This is completely different. This developer could buy this and change their mind about putting it in there and sell it, and you could put anything there. But this is residential, and we've had nobody but the developer ask for it, and all the neighbors around that I've talked to have been opposed to having this piece of property changed the zoning of it.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Yes, sir, Mr. Robinson.
As I said before, I'll vote in favor of this on first reading so we can have a second reading that will be open to the public.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Terry?
Like on this one, I understand what Mr. Robinson's saying, but there's nobody, the public is all opposed to it. There's no argument there, just a developer and the public. And why would we have a meeting for it and just not go no on the first reading? We have nobody to have a meeting with.
Well, yes, sir, Kent.
Well, I'm not as close to this one as I am with the Kresge. It's not my ward or anything, but I've listened and I've paid attention. I've written out there. But if, just as you said, if the planning commission is a no vote, then that sends a negative connotation to me. And, you know, I would not pursue this any further. I would vote no.
Yes, Ms. Pat.
Well, again, I'm worried about rezoning this. It's not a flexible review district. There's no guarantee for what we're going to have. It is not a PD, a planned development. There's no security, again, for what we might have at this location. And I listened at the Planning Commission meeting, and I feel very comfortable that the concept is a good one, a low-income housing, or not low-income housing, but a low-cost senior living facility, which I might need once in a little bit, but that's not the place for it. I would like to see us, as Terry Moore said, we paid all that money to have the study done at the 153 corridor. There's plenty of land out there, and I think that would be a very good place to put some facility like this. But it bothers me that we have no guarantee of what might happen in the future. It could be resold. All sorts of things could happen. So that's what bothers me about it. And I'm negative about this one. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Brian, okay, Brian.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, as I mentioned on the previous ordinance, I typically defer to the Planning Commission, and I am bothered that there was no action taken on this request. And although I agree with Jim that we do need public input, and that's important, and hopefully we get back to more of that. Again, I go back to the Planning Commission's decision, and that's going to lead me here to have a negative vote on this request.
Okay.
Call for the question.
Call for the question. All in favor of this ordinance, raise your right hand. Show Mr. Robinson. All opposed, show your right hand. Thank you. Item 10, new resolutions. Resolution number 2021-01, supporting the South Carolina House of Representatives and Senate in the action of naming a part of North A Street for Dr. John T. Simpson. I ask for a motion. Motion by Ms. Pat.
Second.
Second by Brian. Stephen.
Yes, sir. So Senator Rice, who is our state senator at the state house, excuse me, who is our South Carolina state senator for this area, is working to rename a part of North A Street in honor of John T. Simpson. Just a little bit of background. He was born in 1867, served as a distinguished educator, and was respectively referred to as Professor Simpson till his death in 1939. The Easley Colored School was founded in 1900 and it originally had 107 students in a one-room schoolhouse. In 1927, John Simpson started as principal, and during his 12 years of service as principal, he was able to expand the school to 5 rooms and add 4 additional teachers. In 1955, it was renamed the Clearview Colored School, with the elementary department known as the Simpson Elementary School. The Clearview Colored School was renamed the Simpson Academy in his honor in 1970 and served the community until 2011. This was post the desegregation. It was renamed after him, and then in 2011 they actually closed Simpson Academy down and is now the head, and then the building was sold off and is now where the Dream Center is located. City Council recognizes the impact that Mr. Simpson had on the students, the community, and the service that he provided to Easley and the history and his history, and the service. Place in Easley's history should be recognized. So the resolution would support the honorary renaming of the street for him. And we would send that to our senator and House members and ask them to continue to move forward and working to complete that. I will turn it over, and if there's any questions, we will work get you answers on those. I know Councilman Moore has been doing a little bit of research as well, and I think Councilman Webb wanted to tweak to the wording.
Councilman Moore.
Yes, sir. I want to rename some things I've said that I said in the workshop. I went to the school district and got a history book on the schools of Pickens County, and some interesting facts came up. First, I'd just like to say thank you to Dr. Simpson for what he did and all his descendants. This school was from 1900 to 1927 in a privately owned one-room structure. The value of the building, grounds, and furniture was $400. In 1900, there was 107 pupils enrolled. A teacher was employed in 1913. The teacher had a first grade certificate and received annual salary of $330. The school term was 140 days with 115 students. In 1929, the school was torn down with a storm, and they built a new school with 5 rooms. One wood or coal heater was in the hall that heated the entire school. So what accomplishment. So give a hand to those people that brought that through. And Dr. Simpson, I'm just so proud. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And Ms. Pat.
If I might, I would like to propose an amendment to this to add 3 words. And I'm very, very proud of what Dr. Simpson did. And I'd like to reinforce that. In the last whereas, it says, whereas the city of Easley recognizes the impact that John Simpson had on his students, I would like to amend that by adding 3 words. Recognizing the positive and enduring impact that John T. Simpson had on his students and the community. It's a simple thing, but it reinforces.
Pat, would you mind saying that again, please?
Yes, ma'am. I would like to add 3 words in the last paragraph of whereases that says the City Council of Easley recognizes and the new wording would be positive and enduring impact that John T. Simpson had on his students in the community.
And you're making that as a motion, correct?
Yes, please.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Yes, sir, Mr. Moore.
Mr. Mayor, are we the one that decides it's what goes on there? Will the state decide since they're putting that sign? Will that be there?
It'll be totally up to them. They just want our support. And let me make sure Stephen mentioned this earlier. The street will not be changed at all. It'll just be honoring Mr. Simpson. The street will still be the same name, North A Street.
Okay.
So for those that think the name may be changing. Okay.
So there's a
very worthwhile. Very worthwhile.
There's a motion on the floor to add positive and enduring impact, correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And that motion has been called for. So
Yes,
we
sir.
will. So now we vote on the amendment.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm in favor.
You can ask.
You're gonna
Call,
you call for the question?
call the
I
question?
did.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Call for the question. All in favor of this
Amendment.
resolution with amendment? Raise your right hand.
I believe point of order, Mr. James,
Yes,
we just voted on the amendment, correct? Now we have to vote on the resolution.
yes, sir, that is correct. We need to vote on the resolution now.
So the amendment passed, so I will call the question to vote on the resolution.
Okay, call for the question on that. All in favor of that, raise your right hand.
Thank you.
Item B, resolution number 2021-01 to amend the certification of property located 105 Stewart Drive. Need a motion?
Motion, bring it to the table.
Mr. Moore. Second by Ms. Webb. Okay, Stephen.
So the South Carolina Abandoned Buildings Revitalization Act, it was created to encourage and incentivize redevelopment of abandoned buildings. So the act requires that the local government certify that at least 66% of the building or buildings were abandoned and closed for business the last 5 years. The developers of the property for this one is Getty's Middle Holding LLC has requested the certification of the property. We actually approved this back in August. They've asked us to update it. They have done a little bit of redesign and actually gone through the permitting process again. They reduced the number of units they were constructing. They've asked us to update it to reflect those number of units. The owner has given an affidavit stating that no business operations have occurred. We have no record of any business operations occurring. This previously was the Getty's Middle School before it relocated to the old high school property on Pendleton. And there have been no operations out of this since that school closed. So once this is done, it would just be certified and allows them to go after the tax credits for renovating this property.
Any questions?
Call for the question.
Call for the question. All in favor of this resolution, raise your right hand. Any opposed? None. Item C, resolution number 2021-04, certifying property located at 200 East First Street. I have a motion. Ms. Pat?
Second.
And a second, Mr. Garrison.
So again, this is certification as a abandoned building underneath the South Carolina Abandoned Buildings Revitalization Act. This property is being redeveloped by DVP of Easley. And they've actually, you can you go by, this is the old post office before they moved out to the corner of Highway 8 and Pendleton. I'm sorry, Pendleton, Highway 8 and 123. They've begun doing some site work and doing some demo. This would allow them again to go after the tax credits for renovating this building. It has been vacant with no business occurring in it within 5 years. They have signed an affidavit, the owner has, stating that, and the city has no business permits or licenses that have occupied this property in the last 5 years.
Okay, any questions? No questions? Mr. Moore?
Call for the question.
Call for the question. All in favor of this resolution, raise your right hand. Somebody opposed. Item D, resolution number 2021-05 to award bids for stormwater repair project. That's for a motion.
Motion to bring to the floor for debate.
Mr. Brian Garrison and Kent Dykes.
Second.
So the city of Easley issued a stormwater bond for $790,000 last year to complete the projects that were identified. There were 17 projects that were brought by Public Works and our stormwater department. City issued an invitation for bid that included these projects throughout the city, advertised it January 19th. It closed February 23rd. The city received 5 total submittals. What the staff has recommended for award is to have the ability to award the projects to all 5 contractors that submitted. We want to award each project to the lowest bidder, and each submittal that was each contractor that submitted was the lowest bid on at least one project. So we want to spread these projects out. A, we can get them done a little quicker because we can have multiple projects going on by different contractors at the same time. But B, by going with the lowest bidder for each project, it will allow us to allow the funds to go further and be able to get more projects done for the funds that we have available. You can see that the contractors listed there are Buck Outdoors, KMI of Easley, LJ Inc., Yardmender, and Howard Contractors. And again, each of them were the lowest bid on at least one of the projects that were advertised.
Okay. Any questions? None?
I did want to add, since we did talk about this in the work session, one project that is not part of this, actually 2 projects, is Dogwood Lane and South 2nd Street. The city did receive grants for those and C funds, so we have to go through a different procurement process with those. It is currently out for bid, and those 2 projects will close March the 29th, and we will bring them back to council in April to award with a recommendation for both those projects. And the goal is that they will begin work within 30 days after award. So we're hoping to see Dogwood and South 2nd begin work this spring into the summer, and hopefully get them completed this summer so we can open those roads back up. I know especially the one over there by Getty's will be appreciated.
Okay. Call for the question.
Call for the question. All in favor of this resolution, raise your right hand. I'll have it. Resolution number 2021-06 to award the invitation for bids to complete road and resurfacing projects in the city. Have a motion. Mr. Moore, Ms. Pat. First. Okay, Stephen.
So again, this one was advertised out for an invitation for bid. There was a total of potential of 29 roads and 7 groupings. We are trying to group the roads either in subdivisions or in close proximity to each other to try to, again, get as much done for the funding that we have available. It was advertised not January 19th, closed February 23rd, and again, we received 5 total submittals. However, on this one, there are 3 that the staff would like to be able to award to. That's Vaneski Asphalt, King Asphalt, and Pickens Construction. Again, they were the 3 that were the lowest on at least one road throughout the bid. However, we also would like, last year we gave all roads to one contractor. We would like to try to issue to multiple so we can compare some of the quality of work and make sure, again, that we can get as much work done as quickly as possible, but also to make sure that we're getting the highest quality of roads and the quality that we would like to see, to make sure that we don't have to go back out and do any repairs. So we would like to try to award at least a group to at least 2 or 3 of these so that we can compare their quality of work and make sure that we're happy. Again, the number of roads to be completed will be determined by our funds. We receive funds each month for the road fee from the road maintenance fee that the county collects based on the number of road miles that we have. That generally comes out to between about $250,000 and $275,000 a year. So we will try to go as far as we can with the funds that we have remaining from last year and the funds that we will get this year.
Okay, any questions? Yes, Ms. Pat?
Well, it's not a question, it's a statement, but this is a tremendous amount of work in these 2 resolutions. And I think we're going to put a heavy burden on the folks in our Public Works Department. And it's going to be very tricky for them to be able to ride herd on all of these projects happening all at the same time. My heart is with them, and I wish them good luck. So, but I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And like we talked about in the work session, the road pavings will be completed throughout the entire 2021 as the funds come through. So we may have a group done in the next month, but we may not see the last group get done until September, October, hopefully before the weather gets too cold. But the stormwater projects, yes, ma'am, they'll be a little heavy burden on them for a while.
Yes, sir, Mr. Moore. Do you mute?
Call for the questions. That's all the questions.
Okay. All in favor? All in favor of this resolution, raise your right hand. Thank you. That's it. Item F, resolution number 2021-07 to reappoint James E. Sterling to a 2-year term as judge for the city of Easley. Do you have a motion?
Motion to bring to the floor for discussion.
Okay, Brian and Ms. Pat do second. Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry, that's okay.
So James Sterling was appointed in April 2019 to a 2-year term. This was his first term as municipal judge. He has worked in South Carolina as a licensed attorney for about 12 years now. He has expressed interest and agreed and asked to fill the role of associate municipal judge for the city of Easley for an additional 2-year term. Chief Snow is on, and Judge Snow is on. Judge, if you'd like to add anything or give your recommendation, I'd be more than glad for you to unmute and do so, please.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I would just ask you to consider this. Judge Sterling has been a great asset to the court, and as we continue to open back up from the COVID-19 virus, his services will be greatly needed.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the judge? Yes, sir, Mr. Moore.
I know this gentleman before he came on as a judge. He was an attorney here in Easley practicing. He is an outstanding citizen and an outstanding man, makes good decisions, and is really fair to everybody. I just want to make that comment about it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Someone needs to call the question. I brought it to the floor.
I call the question.
Pat or Kent, call for a question. All in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
That was a long one.
It was, wasn't it?
Good job, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Welcome back.